Hey crew, it's Pitt, and I'm back with another Bible study. Today we're going to be getting back into the book of Genesis. We're going to be talking a little bit more about Noah. But before we get into it, I'm going to go ahead and do my standard disclaimer. This is for the people who are searching for more. The people who are not satisfied with the answers that they have received inside their own religions. I'm not out to convert anybody. I'm not out to try and change anybody's life, because the way that you're going is probably going to be good for you, and you should most definitely continue on that way if you're satisfied. But I was not, and so I read this book a little bit differently than other people. I do not take a Christ-centric approach to it. I think that Christ made a sacrifice that was needed but was never necessary, and this study is going to go into detail as to why I feel that way. I do not take the Bible as the infallible Word of God. I take it as a guidebook written specifically for the Israeli people, the Hebrew people. It was directed for them. It was later adapted to include the Gentiles, which includes my peoples, but it was always intended to target the specific people. I do not believe that there was one people that was preserved from the various cataclysms. I believe that there were several different arcs, and that some of the people were Noah and Shem and Japheth and Ham, and some of the people were Kulikan, or some of the people were some of the Mayans or the Aztec great people of old. We're going to have to bring it up. Sorry. Being able to speak at all in my natural tone is a blessing. It has been 2.5 years since I have been able to speak in that tone at all. And the longer I can do it is more of a blessing every day. That was specifically removed when I made the decision to go forward with this. Whenever I decided, okay, Lord, I'm going to do this, regardless of the backlash that I get, that is when He pulled the cyst from my throat. And I still have to do vocal therapy to get my endurance up and my volume up. But He has removed the cyst from my throat. Okay, that's enough of the standard disclaimer. Let's get back into the book of Genesis. Now, we talked, where we ended was the waters were upon the earth for 150 days. They had been visited by a divine being. And when I say divine being, I do not mean God incarnating inside of Himself. I'm talking about the Elohim, the angels, so to speak. The only difference between an angel, a demon, and an alien is what you call it and the intentions that they have. I believe that the angels are aligned towards good and God, and the demons are aligned towards the other side, however you personify it, and that they tempt in either direction, because there is a temptation to do good too. That's not a bad thing. Anyway, I believe that they were visited by one of the angels for the good side to preserve that line for the other side of the coming disaster. I believe that the waters were raised due to the intrusion into the solar system of a meteorite or a comet or a planet. I don't care what you call it, but it's on a long-term irregular orbit around the sun. And by irregular, that means it doesn't come exactly on this time every time. There's a window that it comes in. It moves faster and slower and around, depending on where we are in space and where it is in space. I believe at this time it aligned in such a way that it attracted the waters from the deeps and raised them at the same time that waters from above rained upon us, and it caused a great flood. Okay, that's the history. I don't believe that it was the divine, I don't believe it was God Himself telling Noah, get in the ark, we're going to seal you up. I believe it was an angel that did that.
But then God remembered Noah and all the animals and livestock that were with him in the ark, and he sent a wind over the earth, and the waters began to subside. The springs of the deep and the floodgates of heaven were closed. They were moving out of the magnetics. And the rain from the sky was restrained. That's where the 150 days. I think they were like, this is earth, and here comes the... Let's see. Make sure we can get it in camera here. All right, so this is the earth, and this is the extra solar thing, right? And it's coming in. Well, about here it starts affecting, and the closer it gets, the more it affects. And then as it moves past, the effect gradually lessens, right? I think that's what the 150-day marker was. There was 150 days coming in and 150 days going out, where it greatly affected the earth. I think what it did was raise the earth, attracted the waters from all the aquifers and the deep pools. All right. So, and on the 17th day of the 7th month, the ark came to rest on the mountains of Ararat. We're not going to get into the timing of those things, but there is definitely timing coincidences. And after 40 days, Noah opened the window he had made in the ark and sent out a raven, and it kept flying back and forth until the waters had dried up from the earth. The raven did not come back into the ark. He sent a dove to see if the waters had receded. And the dove found no place on the first pass. And so 7 days later, he sent him out again. And that time he comes back and he's got an olive branch. And that gives us a frame of how far down the waters must have been, right? Because in order to get to olive trees, you have to get significantly below the peaks of the mountains. And then 7 days again, the dove went out and did not return. It says on his 601st year, in the first month, the waters had dried up from the earth. He removed the covering from the ark and saw that the surface of the ground was dry. And by the 27th day of the second month, the earth was fully dry. So, the first day of the first month, the waters dried up. And then, by almost 2 months later, the earth was fully dry. So, that's from the landing until it was all the way down. Now, here we have a time discrepancy. Is that the 2 weeks between the dove finding the branch and not coming back stretched into 2 months? That's a little bit weird. He removed the covering and found the earth was dry, and then it was another 2 months after that the earth was dry. This is another one of those proofs that this is not divinely inspired. It's the wrong way to put that. This is not divinely written. It was not the hand of God that came down and wrote it. It was Moses. Moses did this 1,000 years after Noah. So that is the equivalent of us trying to write the life and times of, let's say, Tiberius in Rome, right? Without any of the written text that we have, using only verbal history. That's extremely difficult. I think this is an amalgamation of many different stories to convey a message of surviving a very drastic, world-changing event. I do believe that there could have been divine intervention to tell them, hey, fix this ark, escape this flood. I think that happened in various places across the earth. I don't believe it was just the one place. But this was the one place for them, right? All right. And so they came out of the ark. And then Noah built an altar to the Lord, and taking from every clean animal and clean bird, he offered burnt offerings on the altar. In the time of Noah, there were no clean animals, right? No clean birds. We did not have the law yet. The law did not come along until the guy writing this book came up with it. And so, already we've got a discrepancy right there. He's taking all the clean animals and all the clean birds and offering them burnt offerings. And the Lord smelled it and said, never again will I curse the ground because of man, even though every inclination of his heart is evil. And never again will I destroy all living creatures as I have done. As long as earth endures, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night, shall never cease. Does not say anything about man. Man does not have to be there. The earth will endure whether we are here or not. But here's the meat of the matter right here. This is where I wanted to go with this. This is where I believe that the amalgamation rings the truest. There's significant flood stories from all around the world, and the common theme of coming out of them is the reorganization of civilization in a just manner, and that people live the way that they should. So in Genesis 9, we get our instructions on how to do that. And God blessed Noah and his sons and said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. The fear and dread of you will fall on every living creature on the earth, every bird of the air, every creature that crawls on the ground, and all the fish of the sea. They are delivered into your hand." So prior to this point, and this is very important, prior to this point, there was no fear of any animal for humans, right? And why, you say? Because they did not eat them. They ate a vegetarian collection, right? So, if that's the case, and we're about to see, like everything that lives and moves will be food for you, just as I gave you the green plants. Now I give you all things. Prior to this, they were given the green plants. And all the herb-bearing seeds and plants I give to you. That is what the entirety of the diet was prior to this. And now they're to eat meat. Well, if that be the case, then why right here did he make an offering from every clean animal and bird as soon as he got down and before he gets the covenant? Because right here, somebody is trying to write a religion. They are starting a religion with this. And down here, they're just telling a story because they don't see this as important. But this is the important part. This is the part that God preserves in here. And I now give you all things. And that's another thing. At this point, you are giving everything to eat, right? They could have before. Maybe it never occurred to them. Maybe whatever. But from this point forward, everything there is you can eat. That includes pork. That includes shellfish. That includes putting cheese on your burger. All of those things are perfectly acceptable. It is not the food that you take in that defiles you. It is the words you speak. It is what lives in your heart. But you must not eat meat with its lifeblood still in it. I don't believe that refers to the literal blood, right? I think that refers to live things. Don't eat things that are alive. And surely I will require the life of any man or beast by whose hand your lifeblood is shed. I think that is taking the consciousness, I don't believe it is consuming the actual blood, because there will be blood in any meat that you eat. You can get out most of it, you will never get out all of it. And I will demand an accounting from anyone who takes the life of his fellow man. So here is the covenant laid out. Whoever sheds the blood of man, by man his blood will be shed. For in his own image God has made mankind. But as for you, be fruitful and multiply. Spread out across the earth and multiply upon it. There's a lot packed into this. Whoever sheds the blood of man is the exact same thing as Jesus was saying when he said there is but one law and one commandment, and that is to love. That the greatest commandment is to love. That we are to love our own people. And by our own people, that is all of humanity. We were all created differently in different places, but we were all created by the same God. And so whoever sheds the blood of man, by his blood will be shed. By man his blood will be shed. So don't go around killing people, right? But it is okay to kill a killer. It is okay to defend yourself. It is not okay to aggress upon another, because that is also someone who has been shaped in the image of God. And so we are not to take life frivolously. We are not to take life except under extreme duress. If we are defending ourselves, then we can. If we are defending the life of someone else, or even the liberty of, because I'm going to do what I've got to do to keep somebody from getting kidnapped, right? And so, if you're in the defense of, that's one thing. But if you're in the aggressive part, that is another thing. That includes taking your fight to the offender in most cases. Most cases. And that includes the current situation. For in his own image God has made mankind, and we are crafted complete and whole in who we are and how we are created. We are not to be altered in any significant way. That includes changing the genetic makeup of anything, and that includes cutting body parts or adding body parts. And yes, I am talking about the ones that people do cosmetically too. But as for you, be fruitful and multiply. Now, fruitful is an interesting turn of phrase. It is not just, have a lot of kids. That's multiply. What being fruitful is find your purpose and achieve it. Find what you are to do and work diligently towards it. Because when you are fruitful, you bear fruit. Not every fruit tree bears fruit. Not every tree bears fruit. Some trees grow their entire life and never bear fruit. Some trees take 35 years before they bear their first fruit. Some trees start bearing fruit after 2 years. But when you are fruitful, then you are bearing the fruit of your kind, right? And so if you're an oak tree, then you're bearing an acorn. And if you're an apple tree, you're bearing an apple. And if you're a child of God, then you are bearing love. What you are being fruitful of is love, and not hate, not aggression, not adultery, not theft, not idolatry. This is the sum. This one little sentence, or two little phrases here, is the sum of the law. All right here. Be fruitful and multiply. Be productive in your generations, right? Now, we're not going to get into a whole lot of the argument that could surround that. I think that our purpose as humans, for the most part, is to multiply. Some people are not called in that direction in the slightest, and I think that is by God's divine plan. If you're not called to be a parent, you should definitely not force that upon yourself. That does not mean to go and kill any babies, though, at all. It means be responsible, right? And so we are called to be fruitful and to bear fruit and to be purposeful and to do things and to multiply and to spread out across the earth and multiply upon it. I think that I believe that. Like every bit of that. I believe that we were called to not kill anybody, to love our neighbor as we love ourselves, to worship God who has made us in his image, to be fruitful and purposeful in what we do, and to multiply, to promote the generations, not just a generation, but generations from us. From Noah came the entire history of the rest of this book. From Ham came the entire generation in history of a whole different set of peoples of this book. And from Shem came one. From me will come a whole generation of people. And our covenant, the covenant that we are going to hold with God, is this. We will not share the blood of man. We will worship the Lord our God, who has made us in his image. We will be fruitful in our endeavors. We will multiply. We will spread out across the earth, and we will multiply upon it. We will only do that which makes us good stewards of the earth. And that's tough. Like, that's a hard thing to do. It does not mean you can pay a carbon tax and be absolved of anything, for damn sure, because that's a farce. But It means that you have to be responsible. This is one of those points of knowledge right here. You have just entered a new level of responsibility. If you are this far along in this teaching, then you are meant to take responsibility for this. You are meant to take responsibility for your area to ensure that you are being a steward of the earth, to ensure that you are being a light, that you are showing people God's image when they look at you. That is what you are responsible for right now, just like I am. This is a difficult thing for me to go through and to talk about because I was raised steeped in the inerrant word, right? But the message was preserved where man's best attempts to change it failed. This right here is the entirety of the law. Verse 6 and 7 right here holds the whole of the law summed up, and it doesn't say anything about a sacrifice. It says live your life this way, and it is really simple. It is not difficult. These are not onerous tasks, right? We make them onerous when we put on the extra stuff. We're going to get into that when we get into Exodus. All the extra stuff that just got added on because man demanded it. Like, man said, okay, we're ruling ourselves and we're doing all right, but we really need some judges, right? And then when we got judges, it's like, well, everybody else got kings. Let's get us some kings, right? That's something that man demanded. The extra stuff that comes past this, that comes past the 10 Commandments, all of that is extra stuff demanded by man. Well, you say we can't work on the Sabbath. Define that for me. And so they write out all these pages. You can't walk past this amount. You can't do this thing. Right? That was written for man. Man was not made for it. All right. Now, that's my ranty part because this is what I am forming the covenant with. This is where I am going forward from. This is what I am going to hold true to. Right? I'm going to do my best to show love, to show the image of God when someone looks at me. I'm going to do my best to never again shed the blood of man. I'm going to do my best to be fruitful in my endeavors. I've already multiplied. My multiplying days, I'm pretty sure, are over. But hopefully my generations will multiply because multiplication implies more than one addition, right? So when my kids have kids, that is multiplying. And we will spread out across the earth and we will take claim upon it and we will be stewards of it. And then God said to Noah and his sons with him, behold, I now establish my covenant with you and your descendants after you, and with every living creature that was with you, the birds, the livestock, and every beast of the earth, every living thing that came out of the ark. And I establish my covenant with you. Never again will all life be cut off by the waters of a flood, and never again will there be a flood to destroy the earth. And God said, this is the sign of the covenant I am making between me and you and every living creature, a covenant for all generations to come. I have set my rainbow in the clouds, and it will be a sign of the covenant between me and the earth. Whenever I form clouds over the earth and rainbow appears in the clouds, I will remember my covenant. I will see it and remember the everlasting covenant. This is the sign of the covenant that I have established. I think that in the days to come, and I've talked about this in other videos, but I think that in the days to come, we are going to lose our atmosphere. And there will not be a rainbow in the sky anywheres on this planet. And I think we're going to get a flood, but it's not going to be of water. I think that if you haven't seen my other videos, I recommend that you do check them out. But there's a scientific reason why I believe that the coming devastation has come before. I think it was what happened to Adam and Eve. I think that's where we are in history. It's about to happen again. And that there will be fire this time, and it will be like it was before with the plasma discharge and the whirling sword of fire that cast them out of Eden. I think that when the skies roll back from the magnetic interference this time, it would be a very, very, very bad idea to be outside. I think you should go ye into your rooms for a little while until this time has passed, for about 3 days, maybe 3.5. And in that time, it will be dangerous to be outside. There will be no protection between us and the bombardment of the earth by everything in the cosmos. So definitely want to take shelter if you see the skies roll back. But there won't be a rainbow if that happens, and that's where I was going with that. And now we're going to get into another one of what can only be taken as being shoehorned in here. This book was written by Moses, and Moses was establishing a religion. And so we've got Noah's shame and Canaan's curse. The sons of Noah who came out of the ark were Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Remember those names, they'll come back. And Ham was the father of Canaan, and these three were the sons of Noah, and from them the whole earth was populated. Noah planted a vineyard, made some wine, got drunk, and passed out naked in his own tent. And Ham, one of the three sons, saw his father naked and went outside and told his brothers. And then Shem and Japheth took a garment and placed it across their shoulders between them, and walking backwards they covered their father's nakedness. And they didn't look. And then Noah awoke from his drunkenness and learned what his youngest son had done to him, and said, "Cursed be Canaan, the servant of servants shall he be to his brothers." Now, I believe that this was a shoehorn in by Moses because his people were of Shem. And I believe that this was him finding a way to lay claim, according to divine will, to the land of Canaan. And he also declared, "Blessed be the Lord, the God of Shem. May Canaan be the servant of Shem." Again, another shoehorn. "And may God expand the territory of Japheth. And may he dwell in the tents of Shem. And may Canaan be his servant." We're going to look real quick. That's the Japhethites. We're not going to look at them. This is the Hamites, right? This is the sons of Ham: Cush, Mizraim, Put, and Canaan. So he's got 4 sons. But just one of them got cursed for what his father did. Not even the first son. The first son is Cush, and then Mizraim, then Put, then Canaan. They're always listed in the order that they're born, right? And so it's not even the firstborn son of Ham. So Ham sees his father naked and goes outside and makes fun of him to his brothers. They go in and cover him, and then somebody that was entirely not involved gets cursed. I think it's a shoehorn. I think this is one of the reasons why it's not the infallible Word of God. I believe that the message endures regardless of the best efforts of men. And I believe that was one of the efforts of men to justify taking land. We're going to look at that in just a second, but first we're going to hit Genesis 11 real quick, because this is relevant. The Tower of Babel. Now, the whole world had one language and a common form of speech. And as the people journeyed eastward, they found a plain in the land of Shinar and settled there. And they said to one another, "Come, let us make bricks and bake them thoroughly." So they used brick instead of stone and tar instead of mortar. "Let us build for ourselves a tower that reaches to the heavens, that we may make a name for ourselves and not be scattered over the face of all the earth." And the Lord came down and saw the city and the tower and said, "All of these people speaking the same language, then nothing they will devise will be beyond them. Come, let us go down and confuse their language, so that they will not understand one another's speech." And then the Lord scattered them, and they stopped building the city. And that is why it is called Babel, for the Lord confused the language of the whole world, and from that place the Lord scattered them over the face of all the earth. I don't know quite how to take this part. Because I think it is an amalgamation and another shoehorn for a large part. I don't think that they came from the east. I don't think that they journeyed eastward. I think they journeyed from the east. And they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they settled there. And they started building, and then they got angry with each other, and they moved away from each other, and they started doing like people do. I'm not positive how to take the Tower of Babel, because this was after, like, there's a lot of people that try to make a correlation between the Tower of Babel and DNA and saying that this was the DNA editing. But the DNA editing that they were doing was earlier than this, right? It was before the flood. This could be from before the flood, but it doesn't say that. It says that it was after the flood. It doesn't get too specific of when after the flood, but it says that people were dispersed from the place of Babel. I think that is the part that got preserved in this part of the book. We're not going to get into the genealogies right now, but we are going to look a little bit at some geology. And I waited to do this until the end so that I can align this where y'all can probably see most of what we're going to talk about. All right, so let's talk geology. First off, the area that we're talking about is here. This is the area of Babel. It's actually right here, but for some reason my marker got moved here and up there. But about 50 miles south of Baghdad is where Saddam Hussein was rebuilding Babylon. He was rebuilding a lot of the monuments. He was planning on rebuilding the Tower of Babel. And so this is the area where we're talking about the dispersal coming from. I think that Mount Ararat, way up here on the Armenian border, is a much worse location to wind up down here. There's no reason, if you're up here, to go any farther than this valley, or this valley for sure, because if you're up here, you can see this. There is plenty of room for you and your 3 sons to spread and multiply and be fruitful. Why would you go hundreds of miles to the south? I think I went too far again. No, I didn't. Here. Why would you go hundreds of miles to the south? Let's see how far that is. From Mount Ararat to Babel is 470 miles, roughly. Right? So, why would you travel that? There's much lusher ground here. It is much more productive. Why would you go into and across a desert to wind up here? Doesn't make any sense. The same for the Chikadar Mountains, which this should be right here. These mountains right here are actually in Iraq, and they're one of the places that the Ark has said that maybe it had landed. I don't see that. What I think happened was they traveled from the east. I think they came from right up in this area. And they traveled, and they got here, and they were like, oh, look, this is nice and bright and green, and there's food, and we can grow things, and our flocks can eat. Let's settle here. And so they did, and they had generations here. And from here, they spread out and took over the earth. There's a whole teaching of people that says that the sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, took over various sections of the world. They try to say that this area here was Ham, that this area here was Shem, and that this area here was Japheth, and I don't believe that. I believe that they all started from right here and moved out. I think that Shem went down this way. I think that Japheth went up this way, and I think Ham went off this way. I think that maybe as far as Egypt and Libya, I doubt as far as Algeria and Tunisia, probably right around this river right here, they would take up residence. I think that Shem started here and moved off into Iran and down into the Saudi Arabian Peninsula. I think that Japheth was here in Turkey and Armenia and Azerbaijan, and possibly as far north as this. I think that there were other arcs here and here, and that there were other arcs down here that account for these peoples. I don't believe that all of these peoples were descended from these peoples. I don't believe that these peoples were descended from these peoples. But I really don't believe that these peoples came from these peoples. I think there were other arcs. I think that this is the story of this arc, and it has been amalgamated into a story to justify people from here winding up taking land from people from here. Now, I think that this was Canaan right here. We're not going to get a good clear definition, but it comes up this way and it goes down this way. Was the land of Canaan. I think that when Moses led the Israelis out of Egypt, through the Red Sea, through the wilderness, and back up, he came to this land and was like, all right, here's where we're going to make the book work. And so he made Canaan be the bad guy. Now, I believe that there was still some lingering genetic manipulations, that there were still some giants and monsters still on the earth, possibly descended from the wives, which is one theory, or they came from other arcs. Not all of the divine forces work for good. Right? And so some of the demons possibly had their own arcs. And they possibly saved some of the corrupted lines of like Goliath, Cyclops. Those type of bloodlines may have been preserved by other divine beings. And so I believe that the ark settled here and they moved out this way and they dispersed from there. I believe that Japheth ruled this area, like him and his descendants settled into this nice green lush area here. I believe that this area was taken over by Shem, and that this area over here wound up being Ham, until later when Abram needed to journey, and he wound up journeying through here, and he comes through this area and down into this area, and then later Moses comes from here into here. I believe, and I hope that I have stated my case at least a little bit why I believe that. We're going to go ahead and wrap this one up here. We will come back to Genesis on the next round. I hope that I brought a little bit of enlightenment and lessened a little bit of confusion. If not, I am sorry, but I absolutely have to do this. I don't get
a choice in what I am saying here. The very reason that I am able to talk at all in this tone of voice is because of what I am saying here. The Lord God took out the cyst from my throat because of the decision I made. And that decision was to put this information out, along with a lot of other stuff that's coming later. This is groundwork. To the crew, thanks for hanging out. I appreciate every single minute that you are here with me, and I am praying for you every single day. Until next time, this has been pittstake. Peace.